Hey everybody, and welcome back. This is part 2 of the indie game marketing guide that I put together to you in this audio podcast. So we're going to just jump right into it. Just a quick review. Part 1 is where we discuss the 3 core main aspects in addition to some foundation setting, which is all essential in terms of marketing your indie game. So part 2 is going to be talking about what are other impactful indie game marketing ideas and strategies. So again, we cover the 3 core main ones. This is based off of a lot of information that and questions that I asked lots of industry veterans and everybody that I could think of. I asked what their top 3 were, and those ended up being the top 3. However, everybody's top 3 were different, of course, and this is a section where I go into other elements of marketing that can really help amplify those main core aspects. So hope you're looking forward to this section. Because still we have a lot to uncover. Not as much as we did in the beginning, but still really helpful, impactful content here. So again, thanks for listening to this. And if you really enjoy and like it, please share it. If you think it's providing value for you, chances are it's going to provide value to someone else. So take a moment, share this with other people, whether it's the link to the article. Just would really appreciate it if you do that. Thanks. All right, and as I introduced before, this is part 2 of the indie game marketing guide, a guide on how to stand out. And we're just going to kick it off right away and go into the next topic here, which is what are other impactful indie game marketing ideas? Now, we covered a lot about how social media game influencers, and events are considered the most impactful types of game marketing. Though they're effective, there are still many other marketing strategies that can compound the results of those efforts. So when it comes to indie game marketing, you need to think about how to take a holistic approach and be aware of every aspect of marketing. However, that doesn't mean you need to do everything, okay? Knowing what you don't know or are not doing is better than not knowing anything. And I'm going to say that one more time. Knowing what you don't know or are not doing is better than not knowing anything. However, it's still up for you to decide how much marketing you want to incorporate. This all depends on your team size and what resources you're willing to invest. With that said, here are several other strategies you should consider being a part of your indie game marketing strategy. Create optimized landing pages. All right, now regardless of how you're creating awareness, at some point you're going to direct players to a landing page. A landing page is basically a page designed to specifically convert. So whether it's your website, Steam page, or App Store page, a landing page is where you want visitors to take some type of action. To help make sure they do, you need to optimize your landing pages. Below, I've gone into each type of landing page, their importance, and how to make them more effective to generate results. So, website page optimization. This is mostly pertaining to websites. In most cases, when people are directing players to their website or a specific landing page on their site, they want them to take action. In a lot of cases, this entails signing up for an email list, but can be a lot of other different things too. What most people don't know is that landing pages have the highest average conversion rate of all sign-up forms on a website at 24%. So in order to achieve this percent or higher, it's important that your landing page follows conversion rate optimization best practices. Now, conversion rate optimization, it's also called CRO, is basically a process that helps you design your landing pages to convert as many people as possible that visit your page. There are a lot of different ways to address this, but here's some just quick tips that you can consider. So one thing, know how people are visiting the page, like, keeping your player's journey in mind, as we discussed earlier in part 1. You want to know how people got to your page. If they're engaging with the content you promoted, make sure that the page aligns with the content and messaging. Now, focus on one conversion type. This one's really important. Having multiple conversion types is distracting for people. It creates friction, as we've mentioned before. Having an email sign up, Discord link, and other conversion points are more likely to reduce your results, so keep it focused. Incentivize. Make sign up for email lists irresistible by offering an incentive. No, seriously, incentives can help. And this could be in the form of a special offer, alpha, beta access, demo, or other types of lead magnets. Just sometimes you want to be creative, but you don't want to be too creative where you're using too much of your resources to make these things especially if they're not going to help you produce the results you're looking for. And know your data. Using things like Google Analytics can help determine where people are coming from, their behavior, and if they're converting based on your goals you set up within Google Analytics. All right, the next section within optimization we're talking about is Steam page optimization. Now, like a website landing page, you'll also want people to visit your Steam page, of course, and to have them take action. However, how you go about optimizing your Steam page is obviously going to be a little different than optimizing your website landing page. One way to approach this is to think of Steam as a search engine like Google, but for games. So in addition to optimizing your page, you also want your game to be optimized for Steam search results. Most of this happens in the store page interface in the Steam Partner Portal. It's there you have control over your content, your game, and how your game is categorized, and other areas of how your game is listed. Now, when you started creating your Steam page, or if you already have one, I have a few tips here that you should consider to start optimizing your page. One would be have great capsule art. Having this that also properly conveys your game can help increase your click-through rate, which is the number of people that look at the image and then click right to your Steam page. Have great screenshots that provide visual context. In part 1, we talked and discussed a little bit about visual context and the importance of that. So this idea and logic applies especially to your screenshots on your Steam page. Typically, people will review screenshots over trailers because it takes less time. So remember, visual context, and be mindful of the user. Like if they're there to go quick, make a decision, make it easy for them. And be clear with your short description. Being clear with your game's description is absolutely crucial. Create one that identifies the game's genre, story element, and objective. I list this specifically because from what I've noticed from really popular games and other things, the ones that get right to the point and everything are the ones that do a great job at this. And the classic example I always love using is of Hades by Supergiant Games. And their main description of Hades is simply, defy the god of the dead as you hack and slash out of the underworld in this roguelike dungeon crawler. You can't get any more specific than that. Not only specific and concise, but clear. You should have a pretty good idea of that game. And I'm sure most of you too, when you hear that description or hear Hades, you can also visualize everything associated with that game, whether you are familiar with the game or not. So it goes to show. Last but not least, choose your tags wisely. Now, picking the right tags that properly describe your game is essential. Choosing overpopulated tags like indie or vague tags like design or illustration don't necessarily help you stand out. So just think of different ways to stand out when you're either stand out or are very clear in what your game is about with your tags. Now, these are just some quick tips that you can easily address. However, it's suggested to become a pro on the subject so you can optimize your Steam page as much as possible. All right, App Store optimization for mobile games, or also known as ASO. Now, by now, you can understand the importance of optimizing your landing pages. But if you're making mobile games, it's essential to optimize your Google Play page or your Apple's App Store page. Now, even following the best ASO practices, App Store optimization practices, you need to keep in mind it's not the only thing that will improve your rankings in the store search results. All right. Now, for example, having an app name that's keyword focused and relates to your game is very important. And outside traffic. So that's a key thing. Sorry, let me back up here. The keyword focus element here is important, and it relates more to App Store optimization. But on another factor to consider is outside traffic is one, because it can help increases your app rankings. So, for example, your social media promotional efforts or paid ads all provide helpful signals to the platform that aids in how your app is shown in search results. One thing I didn't mention too is these are other things that can happen on other platforms too in terms of the form of traffic, sending right signals and stuff. So another little note to keep in mind with everything you do in terms of traffic and how it's sending signals to, marketplaces, platforms, all those things. But without proper ASO, even with the help of the latter, can be an uphill battle to get exposure in the marketplace. So whether you have optimized your App Store page yet or not, here are some ideas that you can implement fairly quickly. Excuse me. One, create a clear description. Again, like I said before with the last example with Hades, but clarity is king. Make sure that your description is clear and concise so players aren't confused about what your game is about. Targeted keywords. Research your keywords that are relevant to your app and focus on the ones that have a decent search volume. Doing so can help increase your click-through rate and traffic. There's a lot that can go into keywords here too, especially with ASO. So make sure you get a little bit more because you also don't want to target the keywords that get the most volume possible because they may be super broad. Again, make sure they're relevant to your app and focus on the ones that have good search volume but are relevant. Stand out with a great icon. Having a great icon is important. It's kind of like your capsule art that we talked about in Steam. So have an icon that stands out among others need to happen. And creating one that conveys what the game is about. See, we're starting to see a trend here. If it can relate or signals or whatever it does to the game experience, to the game itself, that's how you need to create your icon that can stand out. Videos and screenshots, pretty straightforward. Helps players visualize the game, see it in very short amount of time, providing great visual context. These tips will help put you in a good position. But again, making additional updates and continuing to send traffic to your app page is definitely going to help. You can't just rely on ASO, App Store optimization completely. All right, another completely different subject, one of which I'm sure is really important for a lot of you, is community building for indie games. Now, community building is a significant component of indie game marketing. The reason why it's so important is it provides you with additional support and momentum for your game. A community of passionate members can help amplify your game's reach or aid in a number of different ways too. They do this by spreading the word about your game, creating a word-of-mouth marketing. Or I would say not always the case, right? Because I know some people can struggle creating that type of thing, but it definitely has a potential to create word-of-mouth marketing. And when that happens, it can become a very powerful tool. Now, according to Nielsen, which is a leader in audience insights, this is like across every major industry, by the way, this leader, Nielsen. But 92% of consumers rely heavily on trusting recommendations from people they know. Now, I do provide a graph to support this information, and I'll admit it is a little bit old. However, the impact word-of-mouth marketing has is still highly effective when compared to other forms of marketing. I mean, it's undeniable. Who are you going to trust more? An ad that you receive, someone saying that their game is great just from a social media post, or your friend that says, dude, you got to check this out? Okay, I think it's solidified right there from even most of your personal experiences, or at least I would assume that would be the case. But anyways, while a lot of game developers understand this, sometimes they question how to start building a community that creates word-of-mouth marketing. So the short answer is to doing this is basically to start creating awareness for your game. In part one, we mentioned the importance of starting is now, right? Marketing your game, essentially. But you can't build a community if people don't know about your game, right? To the point. That said, how and where people engage with your community should be determined as well. There are lots of ways to build your community, and while all require a lot of dedication and work, it's best to focus on platforms that provide you with the most control and leverage. Again, if you're building a community, it's best to focus on the platforms that provide you with the most control and leverage. Less control you have makes it even more work. So, Here's the one that we feel that does the best job, and that's basically Discord. All right, so building a Discord community. Though Discord has only been around since 2015, it has quickly grown into one of the largest and most active gaming community platforms. It's targeting basically tech-savvy gaming enthusiasts, but still, Discord is the ideal place for any indie game community. Now, it has over about like 350 million users, and each user spends about 280 minutes a month on the platform. So it's kind of a no-brainer why it's a perfect place to engage with gaming fans there. Regardless of its stats, though, Discord provides you with a direct line of communication with people in your community. This is a great way to establish trust with fans by regularly engaging with them, i.e., giving you better control of interacting with them. In doing so, you're more likely to create brand advocates or fans that are more likely and willing to promote your game. All right, so what exactly is Discord? So I would imagine most of you are familiar with Discord, but it's basically a platform that provides servers or places where different communities reside, mostly associated with gaming. There's other communities out there, too, that exist on Discord. It can be a great alternative for other things, but it's primarily for gaming. And those servers are set up and operated by communities or groups of people that usually have a common interest. So within the servers are channels or specific places where users can engage with each other. Pretty straightforward. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. Now, how do you set up a Discord community? You know what? I'm not going to go into the specifics here. I do provide some insight on what you can do, and so I just advise you to check out the article for these, but I'll list out what the key points are here, because here's the thing: managing your Discord community can be a lot of work, but if you're following these basic suggestions, it kind of makes the process a little bit easier to set up and manage once you create the server. And these aren't anything advanced or crazy or anything. It's just to give you a good foundation to kind of just build your community from. And that is plan and structuring your channels. Knowing what channels you have and plan them out makes it helpful. Don't get crazy, though. Just the few that are most helpful. Invite others. Just invite other people to your server. Don't spam them, but find creative ways to do that. Keep people engaged. Once you get people there, they're not going to hang around if it's crickets or no one's talking or anything like that. Keep them engaged. And promote your server. Again, this kind of goes down to invite others, but share it. And maybe not just share that, hey, my server exists, because guess what? Everybody has one. But also, promote it in a way that might be enticing. Do you have interesting conversations? Are there interesting different ways that you approach your game discussion that others don't? Stand out. And get out. So if you set this up at a basic level, but if there's some cool features you want to do or other things, why don't you look around, ask other people, or just get help from a partner or something that can really help amplify and grow your community with you. All right. So again, as I mentioned, this just scratches the surface of what you can do with your Discord server. And again, it's totally worth referencing. I include in the article, in the guide again, a link to a really awesome, helpful, step-by-step Discord setup guide. Definitely worth checking it out. Again, throw it to that. It's redgenmarketing.com/indie game marketing. 3 separate words separated by hyphens. All right. Now, we talked about Discord being the most important, but what about other online communities? So building other online communities could basically be in the form of a YouTube channel, a subreddit for your game, blog, social media account, or even a podcast. Now, there are a lot of other great ways to create a secondary or sub-community. You can also use them to establish that you're an authority figure in your space if that's a direction you're interested in taking. A great example of this is Thomas Brush, who's actually been on the IGN podcast, and I interviewed with him, but taking him as an example for his YouTube channel and how he caters to help indie devs. So he uses that platform as actually one of his main means to be an authority figure in the space. However, these types of communities don't typically provide you with the same level of influence or direct contact you would have with a Discord community. And I want to explain this a little bit further because there could be some confusion in that statement. Now, this is important to understand as sometimes game developers will put a lot of resources into some of these platforms thinking they can become a community they can rely heavily on. But I would say that most of the time, from what I've seen, it's not all the time, and Thomas Brush is a clear example of this, but most of the time, it's not the case. Yes, your awareness efforts on social media and other platforms will naturally help build communities in these spaces. However, because of how many people use the platforms, they don't create the ideal environments for people to become fully immersed, engaged, and influenced by you or your game. Now, again, going back to Thomas Brush as an example, his platform is to provide indie devs with helpful advice on how to make their games, right? His purpose is different than necessarily just sharing how to about his game or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure he'll provide updates that are really helpful, but the audience is different. The audience is more of like a dev community opposed to a gamer community. So those are and that's why I'm using him as an example, because he's got, there's a lot of great things. It really comes down to intent. So be intentful of what you're doing there. But let's say, regardless of what you decide, you want to make these other communities. Maybe you don't necessarily agree with this thinking of these sub-communities where you have less control and everything else because of just how the platform is used by people. For whatever reason, if you feel otherwise, just make sure you ask yourself this. How does this generate results and contribute to your goal? So if you're not sure, chances are whatever you're thinking about utilizing another community, Twitter, I don't care, throw out the platform. Just ask yourself that question. How does this generate results and contribute to your goal? Because if it's not doing it, then it might not be a good fit for you. Moving right along, we are getting to talk about email marketing campaigns now. All right. Email marketing isn't necessarily a type of community. However, it can help drive community engagement in other types of actions you want people to take. This in turn can help drive people further into your funnel. Using email marketing is still a very effective strategy, providing multiple opportunities and benefits for game developers. To start, anyone who joined your email list is likely did because they're interested in your game. That's a really good thing. And as long as you clearly stated your intent on how you plan to use their email, people that signed up gave you the okay to reach out to them directly. That's really important to remember too, because a lot of times we get people's emails addresses and we're like, I don't know if I should reach out to them. They want you to. This increases your ability to influence your fans into taking specific actions. And these can all be in the form of like directing traffic to a website, making sure people received and engaged with updates, joining your Discord, collecting feedback, increased sales or wish lists. I mean, there's any other number of different things that that this can do. So more importantly, though, that this allows you to regularly stay in touch with fans, providing them value by sharing exclusive content about your game. Now, while there are a lot of benefits associated with email marketing, one of the best reasons is that you own the list. Remember, again, you own this list that you created. This matters because you don't have to worry about the information only being accessed through a specific platform or an algorithm change that could affect your reach. By owning this list, you are in complete control of it. You even get extra benefits too. This includes getting help from crowdfunding agencies or creating super targeted paid advertising campaigns if you decide to, that can hone in on new fans that are very similar to yours. Now, overall, email marketing provides a level of influence with fans you generally don't have with any other form of marketing. That's why it's such a powerful tool and can be a powerful tool in this respect. This makes it a worthwhile investment that delivers results and provides more ways to engage directly with your fans and a means for them to take action. So again, super helpful there. I do have some very basic steps that you can use to set up your email marketing campaigns or accounts. If you're interested, check out the guide. Paid advertising for indie games. Now, if you're looking for a way to create impact then leveraging paid advertising will do just that. Of course, this all depends on your goals and objectives. Now, believe it or not, paid advertising can help in a lot of different ways than just creating awareness or sales. One of the most beneficial offerings is how fast you can gain valuable information and honest feedback on your marketing materials. For example, if you're running an ad that does great and generates results, that's a clear indication that your targeting, messaging, and creative, like your media assets, resonate with your audience. Now, if the opposite occurs, it's your job to determine which one of those elements doesn't resonate with your audience, or maybe your targeting's off or whatever. Whether your ads don't work, or if they do work, this shares valuable detailed insight you typically can't get from making a post on social media. I'm not saying that this is always the case. Yes, you can get some great feedback by sharing your content in social media and other things, but sometimes it can take time to kind of get that process down, to really nail it down, or get a post that has some potential virality to it and getting a lot of information that way. What I'm making the point is this is a quick, fast way to learn some valuable information, or can be, I should say. So again, with paid advertising, this information that you learn can be super helpful in how you approach your other marketing campaigns too. But before you start running ads, to learn how your messaging and other factors resonates with your audience, remember, this is just a byproduct of what your focus should be. I've used paid ads. I've done them for other people. I know how effective they can be. But again, this isn't like the only thing you should do by any stretch of the information. And a lot with any of this, right? It all comes down to holistic approaches and being creative with your approaches and doing what's right for you. So, but again, back to my point on how you need to understand that this is just a byproduct of what your focus should be when it comes to paid ads, and that is the focus is getting a return on investment. So if you're using paid ads, and honestly, you should approach all of your marketing this way too, but your focus should still be a return on your investment, which goes back, how is what I'm doing generating results for me? Okay. But we're talking about ads here, so that's specifically return on investment. So let's talk about a little bit how to figure out a return on investment, when you're running your game ads. So when you're running a paid advertising campaign, you want to make sure that the results you generate for your game will be the same or greater than the cost of your advertising campaign. Honestly, you want them to be greater, but if you can break even, not so bad either. It's better than losing money. But let me look at it this way too. This is actually an interesting conversation I had with someone on a Discord server. When you look at marketing, especially paid advertising, you need to look at it as an investment and not as an expense. Because the second you look at it as expense, you're already taking a negative approach and everything is going to be like, oh, well, I lost out on that. No, look at it from the perspective in terms of, not an expense. You want to look at it in terms of how is this really creating value? And that's the approach I'm taking. It's not a way to mask if campaigns don't perform well, because regardless if they do or you don't, at least you learn a lot more than you did before, okay? But anyways, we're talking about here return on investment. So I'm just breaking down some really simple examples of how you can go about doing this. So crowdfunding. I'm actually going to provide you with just one. I think that's going to relate to most people here. So let's say Steam wishlist, for example. So you decided that you're going to run ads to increase your wishlist count. You have a budget of, let's say, $1,000 of ad spend, and you're able to generate about 1,000 wish lists. So your cost per wish list is about $1. In a lot of cases, this is what I suggest to shoot for, and is really good because if whatever the price point of your game is, especially if it's like, I would suggest $20 or more, that's going to be a good return even with the other costs and stuff. But I'm breaking it down further. So let's say, estimate that of the 1,000 wish lists you generated, 10% will buy the game on release. I would say that's a fair assessment. Those numbers fluctuate, but let's go with 10% for easy math here. If your game is priced at, let's say, $25, then your campaign generated $2,500 in revenue. Your return on investment is $1,500, and your return on ad spend, which is ROAS, ROAS, return on ad spend is 250%. So, and now if you factor in Steam's 30% cut, your net return on investment, after all fees and costs and stuff, is $1,750, and your net return on ad spend is only 175%. But still, the point here in this example is if you hone in all your targeting and everything else and doing it right, it can be a really good way to generate wish lists, pledges, sales, anything along those lines. Certain guidelines need to be met, but still, just an example of how you could do this and how to calculate it. Because if you're getting well below that and you're not breaking even at the very least, then you might need to reconsider things. Running ads in general can help provide you valuable insight. Regardless of that, you need to track your ad campaign's efforts to ensure they're generating a positive ROI. If they aren't, then you should optimize your campaigns or determine if using a certain ad platform is a good fit for promoting your game. Now, you understand the importance of getting a return on investment, but let's focus on which ad platforms typically provide the best results for indie games. I'm going to lead in with Facebook ads for games here. So when it comes to running game ads, Facebook is going to be one of the best advertising platforms out there for a few reasons. One of the main ones is the majority of Facebook's user demographic matches what most indie games are targeting in terms of people, those demographics. But outside of that, here are a few other reasons why it's such a great advertising platform to leverage. Targeting. This is the most important one here, by the way. Out of all the platforms, Facebook has a fairly extensive list of game-related interest groups to target. This is really helpful when narrowing your targeting. But you can also create custom audiences and lookalike audiences. What's great about lookalike audiences in particular, and I referenced this before with email marketing, is that they are based on your custom audiences, such as an email list. This means you can target new people that are similar to your email list. So if your email list consists of everybody who is highly passionate about your game, then Facebook has a lot of various factors in which they can hone in and target people that have similar characteristics to the people that are already passionate about your game. And at the end of the day, if we can do a better job at targeting user behavior, which is always a challenge, then and you know what that behavior is and how it relates to your game and what you're doing, you're putting yourself in a better position. That's why Facebook's so awesome in that regards. Other platforms, they can do this. They just don't do it as well as Facebook yet. Functionality. Another great thing about Facebook is that they offer a robust option of campaign objectives and ad types. Generally, most indie games focus on driving traffic, generating leads, or conversion objective types. These options allow you to really cater your campaign to specific needs, and most of the ad formats that fall under the latter objective types work great for games. Again, they have so many different types of ad functionality for the purpose of campaigns, and not just games, obviously, but there's a lot of things that you can do, a lot of creative ways to do it. So lots of potential there. Social influence. This is another interesting factor that a lot of people I don't think pick up on when it comes to ads. And that one thing is that most people miss a benefit when they're using their Facebook ads compared to other ad platforms. Is this social influence? So, because one common behavior when people comment on ads is they tag their friends. This still happens as well, and tagging friends isn't quite like some sharing, like someone sharing your ad, but it's more of an indirect call to action. Comments in general on ads can be viewed as social proof too. It can help further validate your messaging too. So when I talked about the learning experience, it's not just like, hey, what type of metrics are people that you're seeing and people engaging with your ads and stuff like that, but also you can get a lot of comments on stuff. Yeah, you can get some junk in there too. I'm not going to lie, but you can get some really helpful stuff and different ways to approach your marketing too, which is really cool when that happens, when people pull out certain things that like, wow, this looked really cool. You start seeing your trend, you're like, hey, why don't we try this in our messaging now? But in some cases, like I said, it can also reveal potential flaws in your ads messaging, but that's really helpful too. If people are calling you out and like, wow, that's a bold statement you're making with your game, well, now you know maybe you shouldn't make such a bold statement with your game. But if that's the case, make the bold statement. Either way, the fact that you're getting attention, the fact that you're getting someone to comment at you is showing that something's happening and it's going to move you in the right direction. Being able to get in front of your ideal audience is always important. And with Facebook ads, you're definitely able to do this. So definitely things to consider when you're using Facebook ads. But I want to go into some quick little bullet points too to keep in mind if you're going to use them. Approach your ads as a learning experience. Again, this is an investment, not an expense. Go in with a positive attitude and approach your ads as a learning experience, because there is a lot you can learn if you have the right mindset. Know the platform. Hey, it can be super cumbersome. If you don't know it, it can be a real challenge. That's a lot of the reasons why people come to me to help with their Facebook ads is because they understand it to a degree, but they don't know the intricacies and things like that. So if you're going to do it yourself, know it. It makes things so much easier, and you're going to be that much more confident in how you serve your ads to others. Regardless if it's with someone else or you're doing it, just know it. Know your audience. Hey, again, a universal message here. Just do your research. Make sure you know who you're targeting. You don't want to be too broad or focused either, because too broad, you're going to get junk results, and too focused, you're not going to get anything. Know your objective. Seriously, identify what you're focused on, what you really want the end result to be. Because if it's not very intended, if you don't lead it with intent or know what you're doing in terms of what you ultimately want people to do, it's not going to be effective. And then have lots of creative and ad copy ready. This is great because on the fly you can get everything pre-approved and switch your format. Switch your ad types and stuff like pause, enable. It makes it so much easier. It lets you to test things a lot further. It's just do it. Have lots of creative and ad copy ready. Don't lead with just one ad and then try to do another ad later and stuff. It wastes time. You don't have time to waste, right? Do it. That's all I got for the Facebook part. We're going to jump right into Reddit ads for games. Now, though Reddit ads targeting isn't as advanced as Facebook's, one of the biggest benefits it allows you to target is specific communities or subreddits. With Reddit having such an active and passionate user base, it makes it all the more worthwhile advertising platform to leverage. While you can still promote your game on Reddit organically, it can be frowned upon by the Reddit community if you promote it frequently and probably distastefully, like spammy, right? And this can have a lot of repercussions if you're simply not careful. I've seen a lot of devs have this happen to them firsthand, where they had to, their account got banned or whatever the case was. Just be careful with how you use Reddit in terms of organic posting it. Contribute to the community. So anyways, so what's so awesome about Reddit ads is you can advertise to multiple subreddits at once. This even includes subreddits that don't allow organic promotional posts. This part's key because a lot of times you'll be looking to organically post in some communities and they don't allow promotional posting. So this is a great opportunity to get in front of people that are more likely than not to be part of your ideal audience. Now, another bonus is because Reddit isn't as large as other advertising platforms, Reddit's bids are generally lower than other platforms. This means you can stretch your advertising dollars further by driving more traffic compared to other advertising platforms. So, what's the best way to advertise on Reddit? It really depends on what your goals and objectives are. Reddit does offer a few objective types ranging from creating awareness or driving traffic. But even after you decide your advertising objective, you need to be aware that Reddit is a different environment when it comes to advertising. So, how so? You just need to be a little bit more creative, to be honest. And one of the best ways to do that is to really get to know the types of people in the communities you plan to target. So after you set up an account, here are some tips if you're considering using Reddit ads for your games. Research the subreddits. Super important. Again, it's same concept of know your audience. You may find a subreddit that seems perfect for your target audience, but only to find out later it isn't. It's also worth researching affinity subreddits too. Do the work and research your audience. If you know your audience, you know their other different interests are. Some of what I mentioned to you before in part 1 with Reddit from an organic perspective. If you have these things in mind, you know of different ways to communicate with them. You know what's going to resonate with them. And if your ads can do that, it's going to stretch out your dollars way further. So research the subreddits and, again, know your audience. Cater your ads to Redditors. Reddit has a certain vibe to it that's different from other social media platforms. Understand your audience and be creative, and don't just copy ads from other campaigns. Reddit's got a different vibe. If it doesn't work with them, it's not going to work for your campaign and your needs. So know the platform, know the audience, and consider focusing on CPC or cost per click objectives. As I mentioned before, they have a few bidding objectives, but the cost per click ones may be better suited for driving results, where the basically impression-based one, CPM, cost per mile, and cost per view model, CPV, are more impression-based. And my feeling about impressions, great, people get to know. There's ways to measure that, but you don't really get the best attribution out of it. So cost per click is typically the best one for driving results. But hey, if you find a means for it to work differently, let me know about it, or just do it. Ultimately, you want to create an ad that resonates with Redditors. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to target subreddits that your game relates to. But it's also worth going a step further and doing some extra research to see if there are any trending topics or pain points you could use creatively in your ads. Again, like anything else you do with your ads or any form of marketing, it's going to be an iterative process. However, the more information you learn, the better you can optimize your ad campaigns. Now, we're coming to a conclusion here. We discussed a lot of the different strategies that you can use in addition to those 3 core main ones in part 1. But I want to leave this thought with, what's the best way to stand out with indie game marketing? Now, I really hope, first of all, that this guide provided you with the necessary insight into all the different processes and steps you need to consider with your indie game marketing. Having the right mindset, understanding your approach will all impact your audience, maximize your efforts, and increase results. However, regardless of what indie game marketing strategies or approaches you use, none of them will amount to much if you don't do one important thing. Be yourself. Yes, you're tailoring your marketing materials for your audience, but not adding your own personal touch, tone, or flavor to the mix is going to be a disservice to your audience. Between your passion and commitment, there's already a ton of you and your team baked into your game. Those elements help differentiate your game from others. That also needs to be present in some way with your marketing. Not being yourself is extremely hard for anyone to buy into. That goes for you and your audience. Your audience will see through it, and you won't believe in your efforts. So, in addition to all the insight and information we shared here, the best way to stand out with indie game marketing is just to be yourself. Hey, I really appreciate you listening to this part 2. I hope it adds a lot more depth and ideas and consideration to how you approach your marketing. Thank you for tuning in. And listen, if you found this to be helpful or valuable, please share it with others. I did a lot of work making sure that this is very thorough and detailed. Yes, on a high level, but still helpful. So if you find that it is, please share it with others. And thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. If you enjoy and value the show's content, you can support us even more by going to Patreon and visiting www.patreon.com/IGM podcast and select the tier that best suits your needs. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.